Today's video is brought to you by Keks. The M-Meter is the latest light meter from Keks, which is designed for meterless Leica M bodies. The main difference between this and most other shoe-mounted meters is that it couples with a shutter speed dial. So if you have an M2, M3, M4 or other meterless Leica cameras like my M-A, this is a purpose-designed tool for your camera. The design is based on the classic Leica meters from the 60s, like the MC and the M-A. These were selenium or cadmium sulfide based exposure meters featuring dials and a needle display. They look beautiful and were a great accessory from Leica, but the problem is that they lose functionality over time, so finding a tested and accurate one at a decent price has become quite difficult. The Keks meter differs in that it has a built-in rechargeable battery and uses a digital display and controls. It's a lithium cell battery rated for 10 hours of use and is also replaceable. The large screen on the top displays your currently selected shutter speed and suggested aperture based on the ISO you've selected. Simple, yet practical. And because the dial on the bottom of the meter couples with the one on your camera, you don't need to separately adjust the shutter speed on the meter and on the camera. This becomes an intuitive and shutter priority type of metering setup. It means you'll hardly have to press buttons on the meter, so in practice it feels like something that would be built in. Keks is releasing the M-Meter in 3 color options to suit a variety of M bodies. There's a chrome and black chrome, which is the sample that I have, and there's also a black painted brass version. The chrome units sell for $120 and the black paint sells for $140. However, Keks have given me a discount code of 15% to pass on to you, which would bring the prices down to $102 and $119 respectively. Considering how specialized these are, I think that's pretty good value, especially when MR meters can go for much more than that for untested units. So if you're a regular viewer, you know I'm someone who usually shoots without a light meter, especially out on the street. But being a sucker for gear, I still love testing and using tech like this. And I have to say, this looks freaking awesome on my M-A. The black chrome finish matches nicely and it looks right at home on top of the camera, which it is. There's a soft pad on the bottom to prevent any scratches where the meter might touch the body, so nothing to worry about there. You just turn your shutter and the coupling dials to bulb, slide the meter over the shoe, and rotate the dial again until it clicks into place. Very satisfying. There's a main button on the back to power the unit or to start metering, and 2 selection buttons on the top. The screen is big and easy to read even in bright outdoor conditions. In really bright direct sunlight, you start to lose visibility, but it helps to be able to turn up the brightness, which is an option in the menu. In a great move, Keks have now put markings near the selection buttons and another one on the corner to indicate the bulb direction for the dial. This is one of my main criticisms with previous meters they've had, and they've solved that while maintaining the minimal aesthetic. Regarding usage and functionality, you can add plus or minus 3 stops of exposure compensation. ISO stops can be adjusted to full, half, or third stops. The same can be done with aperture stops, and you can also set a minimum and maximum aperture to match your lens. Besides the essential exposure settings, the screen will display other info like the battery level, EV reading, and a symbol if you have any compensation set. In practice, this is quite easy to use. You just press the button on the back to meter on demand, or you can switch into continuous metering mode, which I prefer using, just by double pressing the button. Click it again, and you switch back to single metering mode. Alright, let's talk about accuracy. If you've seen my videos, you know I like to get a bit technical with this, rather than only taking photos using the meter and showing you the results. That leaves too many variables in the mix due to the flexibility of negative film and other factors. Instead, I prefer to compare and take measurements to give you a truer idea of the metering reliability and accuracy. The sensor has a 30-degree reception angle, which is similar to the field of view of a 50mm lens. As with my KM02 light meter test, I metered a variety of scenes and test surfaces against my Sekonic L308's reflective sensor. I also did some comparisons against the ambient sensor of the Sekonic and some test shots using my digital camera's meter. The M-Meter was generally on par with my Sekonic in reflected mode, all within half a stop. The reception angle on the Sekonic is 40 degrees though, so it's worth keeping that in mind. I also compared it against the previous Keks KM-02, which is an accurate meter in its own right, and it also has a matching 30-degree angle. And with most scenes, they gave the same reading. But with dim and mixed lighting, I found that the KM-02 was exposing slightly darker. In this digital sample, you can see that both readings work fine, but the slightly brighter reading of the M-Meter would be preferable to me, especially when shooting film. In low light down towards EV4, the M-Meter was again more accurate than the KM-02, and when we get down to EV2 or 3, which is very low light, they both start to fall short here when compared to the Sekonic. In my tests, the EV range is slightly overstated as being between 1 and 20, but either way, we're not getting down to negative EVs with these kinds of meters. So overall, the accuracy of the M-Meter is great. It was on par with my KM-02, and slightly better in some tricky lighting situations. Keks claims that the sensor has a newly optimized formula which gives greater accuracy and more stable performance. From my testing, I'd be perfectly happy to rely on this for shooting negative film in most situations except very low light like nighttime. I'd even recommend it for shooting slide film if you're deliberate about how you angle it to take readings and factoring in the limitations of the latitude of slide. So, should you get this or another accessory meter like the KM-02? The main and obvious qualifier for this question is whether you want to be restricted to using it only with your Leica M camera or cameras. If you plan to share the meter between that and non-Leica cameras, then of course go for a generic meter. But if you're only using it on an M, then it makes a great choice. You get a great hybrid of modern tech and features combined with the practicality and form factor of the classic Leica meters. You might still find other reasons to go with other meters over this for your Leica, such as the price, wanting a smaller form factor, longer battery life, or a rear-facing screen, for example. Or you might just prefer to input all your settings manually and have the option for more of an aperture priority approach. Now for some downsides of the M-Meter. As with any small accessory meter, the EV range won't be broad enough to rely on for very low light or night shooting. Next, the meter needs to be switched on to see your selected shutter speed. However, it turns on instantly at the press of a button, so this isn't too much of an issue, but still it's worth mentioning in case you're someone who likes to swap around between using this and other meters or just using Sunny 16. Worst case, you just need to switch the meter back on or set a longer timeout speed period or just remove it where necessary. Speaking of this, if you plan to mount and remove the meter repeatedly, it's not going to be as quick as a non-coupled meter. This might be relevant if you want to switch repeatedly with other accessories like a flash, but again, a minor issue, and it only takes a few extra seconds compared to other shoe mount meters. The last downside I have is that the form factor and bulk might not be for everyone, but these are worth the trade-off in my opinion. The shutter coupling and large screen make it a solid compromise for the slightly increased weight. Finally, my overall thoughts of the new M-Meter from Keks. They've done an amazing job. This couldn't have been easy to engineer, and I think it'll fulfill a need for many Leica M shooters. They've added so many features to make it ideal for almost everyone. The customizability, the great display, the build quality and user experience with the anti-scratch pad, and of course the reliability. The only thing that could be improved in my opinion is if we can one day get meters like this that measure down to negative exposure values for night shooting. But then again, you might be better off using other methods for metering those situations anyway. The fact that they're offering a device with all this capability, a 2-year warranty, replaceable type of battery, and the discount code that I mentioned earlier makes it great value and a solid choice for anyone who shoots a meterless Leica M camera. I want to thank Keks for reaching out to me again to review their latest meter and continuing to bring out innovative products for the film photography community. I hope you found this video helpful, and thanks for watching.